Over the years, Donald Trump has continued to defy expectations, emerging stronger from situations where defeat seemed inevitable. Each time he rises, unshaken and often inexplicably fortified, people can't help but ask, is this sheer coincidence? Or could there be something divine at play? Could Trump be chosen by God? The Bible is filled with stories of unlikely individuals called for divine missions. Moses, a man who stammered, led an entire nation to freedom. David, a young shepherd, defeated a giant and became king. Even Jesus, born into humble circumstances, changed the course of history forever. Could something similar be unfolding in our time? God has a history of using unexpected people to fulfill his purposes, especially during moments of chaos. As Scripture reminds us, but God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. Today we explore 7 biblical signs that many believe point to Trump as fulfilling a higher calling. As we go through these, reflect and share your perspective. Do these signs carry divine weight, or are they simply coincidental? And if you notice other signs, supporting or opposing, don't hesitate to add your voice to the conversation. The first sign, number 45, and the prophecy of Cyrus. Donald Trump is the 45th President of the United States, a detail that intriguingly ties to Isaiah 45, a chapter containing a prophecy about Cyrus, a foreign king chosen by God. In this passage, God proclaims, "I summon you by name, though you do not acknowledge me." Cyrus the Great, a Persian king, is celebrated in the Bible as an anointed leader, chosen to free the Israelites from Babylonian captivity and allow them to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. Though not a traditional believer, Cyrus was pivotal in fulfilling God's plan. Now consider Trump. His rise to power was unconventional, bypassing the religious and political elites. Like Cyrus, he's far from a perfect figure, but perfection has rarely been God's criteria. Purpose is. Could Trump, knowingly or unknowingly, be playing a role in a divine plan? History and Scripture suggest that God often chooses the least expected to carry out the extraordinary. The second sign, Jerusalem as Israel's eternal capital. In a move that stunned the world, Donald Trump officially recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and relocated the U.S. embassy there, a decision previous presidents had avoided. For some, this was more than just a political act. It was a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Jerusalem is mentioned over 800 times in Scripture and holds profound spiritual significance. It is described as the city where God chose to establish his name and the eternal heart of Israel. Trump's bold decision resonated with the promise found in Genesis, "I will bless those who bless you." For many, this act was seen as a reaffirmation of the divine bond between Israel and its sacred capital. It was a moment that seemed to align with ancient prophecies about Jerusalem's restoration, reminding the faithful that God's plans remain in motion. Could these actions be signs of divine intervention, or are they simply bold decisions in uncertain times? As we continue through the remaining 5 signs, keep in mind that history often reveals its purpose only in hindsight. Let us know your thoughts and join us as we uncover the next biblical connections in this extraordinary story. Laden with symbolism, the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital was seen by many as an act of extraordinary courage, one that some believe only a divinely chosen leader would dare to undertake. This decision was more than political. It resonated deeply with biblical prophecy, marking what some interpret as a step toward preparing for the coming of the Messiah. The texts of Ezekiel and Revelation portray Jerusalem as central to apocalyptic events. The reconstruction of the temple in Jerusalem, for instance, is not merely a physical endeavor, but a profound symbol of Israel's restoration and God's closeness to his people. Ezekiel describes this temple as the place where God will establish his sanctuary forever, signaling divine return and eternal peace. This is the place of my throne, where I will dwell among the Israelites forever. Revelation expands this vision, foretelling the descent of the New Jerusalem from heaven, a city where God's dwelling place will be among the people, and death and sorrow will cease. In this eternal city, Jerusalem becomes the center of a transformed creation, a beacon of divine presence and peace. Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital was thus perceived by many as a prophetic move, a moment that initiated the unfolding of biblical events. For some, it was evidence that Trump is entrusted with a special mission to protect Israel and advance God's purpose in these times of uncertainty. But Trump's support for Israel didn't stop there. His next action reinforced this belief with the signing of a groundbreaking peace agreement. The third sign, the Abraham Accords. In 2020, Donald Trump brokered the Abraham Accords, a historic and unprecedented peace agreement between Israel and several Arab nations. This marked a dramatic shift in Middle Eastern diplomacy, surprising a world accustomed to decades of hostility and mistrust between these nations. While some viewed this as merely a strategic political move, others saw it as a profound and prophetic moment. The name itself, Abraham Accords, carries immense spiritual significance. Abraham is a central figure in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, uniting these faiths through a shared lineage and God's promise, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. By invoking Abraham, the agreement symbolized not just peace, but a vision of unity and reconciliation deeply rooted in Scripture. Prophecies such as Isaiah's envision a day when nations in the region will join together. In that day, there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria. Israel will be the third, along with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing on the earth. For some believers, the Accords were a glimpse of this prophecy coming to life, a sign that we are nearing a climactic moment in biblical history. Yet caution lingers, as 1 Thessalonians warns. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly. Peace agreements in the Middle East, from a biblical perspective, often herald monumental events. For many, Trump's ability to unite former adversaries was seen as nothing short of miraculous, raising questions about whether divine intervention played a role. Why him? Why now? Could he be part of a larger, sacred plan? The fourth sign, Israel at war after Trump's presidency. Trump's loss in the 2020 election marked a turning point, not just for America, but for Israel as well. His departure from the White House coincided with a dramatic escalation of conflict in the Middle East. After years of relative peace, Israel once again found itself engulfed in war, facing existential threats from its enemies. For some, this sequence of events felt eerily aligned with biblical prophecy. The book of Zechariah foretells a time of turmoil for Israel. "I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that sends all the surrounding peoples reeling. On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations." The prophecy suggests that Jerusalem will become a focal point of global tension, a place where nations gather in defiance but ultimately encounter divine judgment. Trump's absence from leadership at such a critical time is seen by some as part of a divine test for Israel and the world. Could this be evidence of Trump's special role in protecting Israel during his presidency? And could his departure signify a shift in God's plan, paving the way for the fulfillment of greater prophecies? As we explore these signs, it becomes clear that for many, Trump's actions and their timing are too significant to dismiss as coincidence. From peace treaties to decisions steeped in biblical symbolism, his presidency seems to echo the divine patterns of ancient times. But the question remains, Are these events truly part of a higher purpose? Or are they merely the bold decisions of a leader navigating turbulent times? Stay tuned as we examine the remaining signs, each revealing more about Trump's possible role in this prophetic narrative. Share your thoughts below. Are these moments divinely inspired, or is there another explanation? Be besieged as well as Jerusalem. On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations. All who try to move it will injure themselves. This ancient verse, seemingly distant from our modern world, is coming to life before our eyes. Israel, surrounded once again by enemies and facing rising threats, finds itself at the center of global conflict. For many, this isn't just another geopolitical struggle. It's a reflection of biblical prophecy, where Israel's trials are seen as a sign of something much greater unfolding. Some believe the absence of Donald Trump from the presidency marks a pivotal moment in this turbulent stage. It's as though his departure has opened the door to a time of testing for God's people. His exit, followed by the conflict in Israel, serves as a stark reminder that battles are not always decided by elections or political shifts. There's a higher hand at work, guiding the destiny of nations and individuals alike. In Genesis 12, God promises Abraham, "I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse." For some, this divine protection is still very much alive today, influencing the course of events. And it leads us to the next powerful sign. The fifth sign, a narrow escape by mere millimeters. On July 13th, 2024, during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump stood before a passionate crowd, confidently speaking. Mid-speech, he casually glanced at a sign someone was holding, an almost imperceptible gesture. Yet it became the difference between life and death. At that exact moment, an attacker fired a bullet aimed straight at him. But the bullet missed its mark, grazing Trump's ear instead of hitting him directly. The chaos that ensued was instant. People screamed, confusion filled the air, and Trump instinctively touched his ear, not yet fully realizing how close he had come to tragedy. Later, he remarked that if he hadn't turned his head, he wouldn't be alive. On social media he posted, "Only God prevented the unthinkable from happening." The bullet had come within millimeters of ending his life, but it did not strike. Was this mere chance or divine intervention? Some may chalk it up to luck, but for those who see beyond the surface, it looks like something more. Throughout the Bible, we see God intervening in moments of danger to protect those with a greater purpose. In the story of David, God protected him from deadly threats while he was on the run from King Saul. Likewise, Daniel was miraculously saved from the lion's den. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. These weren't just displays of divine power. They were affirmations of protection for those chosen to fulfill a specific mission. For many, the bullet that missed Trump's head was not a coincidence. It was a sign that God's plan for him is still unfolding. Psalm 91 promises, "1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." In this case, the near miss in Butler seemed like a living example of that promise, showing that God has a hand in protecting those he has chosen for a greater purpose. For believers, it wasn't luck. It was a reminder that when God has a plan, no force can thwart it. That split second in Butler may have changed the course of history. The question isn't whether it was chance or destiny, it's what mission is Trump still meant to fulfill. The sixth sign, pro-life policies. From the outset of his presidency, Donald Trump took a bold stand on one of the most divisive issues of our time, the sanctity of life. Throughout his time in office, he championed pro-life policies, fiercely advocating for the protection of life from conception. He nominated conservative judges to the Supreme Court, judges whose decisions would shift the balance toward restricting abortion. For many, this was seen as not just a political stance, but as a fulfillment of a moral duty. The Bible speaks of the value of life, and Trump's actions were viewed by some as aligning with those sacred principles. His presidency became a rallying point for those who believed in the importance of defending the most vulnerable, those who cannot speak for themselves. In a time of division and uncertainty, Trump's unwavering pro-life stance resonated with those who see life as a gift from God, and his actions during his time in office have left an indelible mark on the conversation surrounding life and justice. Another political move or divine purpose. While some viewed Donald Trump's actions as just another political move, many Christians, particularly those who believe life is a sacred gift, saw his stance as a powerful sign. To them, Trump wasn't just making political decisions, he was aligning with divine principles. By advocating for the protection of the most defenseless, those who cannot yet speak, he seemed to embody a biblical mandate to defend life. The Bible consistently portrays life as a precious gift from God, meant to be protected and respected. Psalm 139 states, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because your works are wonderful." These words reinforce the belief that each life is a divine creation, intricately woven by God and deserving of care. By championing pro-life policies, Trump gained the support of Christians who saw him as a leader willing to protect this sacred principle. A defender of life. At a pivotal moment in history, Trump stood as a defender of life, challenging societal norms and pushing for laws to protect the most vulnerable. From a biblical viewpoint, defending life is a sacred duty. In Jeremiah 1:5, God declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." This verse highlights that every life has a purpose and is loved by God even before birth. For those who view the world through a scriptural lens, Trump's policies seem to reflect this profound truth. It wasn't just about changing laws, it was about answering a spiritual call to protect those who cannot defend themselves. His nomination of conservative judges further underscored his commitment, ensuring these pro-life policies would have a lasting impact. To his supporters, every decision Trump made in favor of life was a reflection of biblical values. Despite his unconventional, sometimes controversial leadership, many saw him as a vessel for a divine mandate to protect the sanctity of life. For them, it wasn't mere coincidence. It was an act of courage and obedience to principles they believed were God-given. This stance, in favor of the most vulnerable, affirmed for many that Trump's role in history was guided by a higher purpose. The seventh sign: defense of religious freedom. During his presidency, Trump emerged as a staunch advocate for religious freedom, taking bold steps to protect the rights of religious organizations to operate without compromising their beliefs. He signed executive orders that ensured religious groups could access government funding without forfeiting their right to practice faith according to their conscience. Many felt that religious freedom was being eroded in public life, yet Trump took a stand. He supported prayer in schools, defended the right of public employees to express their religious beliefs, and spearheaded efforts to protect Christian communities abroad, especially those facing persecution. To some, this was merely a political maneuver, but to others, it was a sign of something far deeper, a divine purpose guiding an unlikely leader to restore a value that seemed to be fading from society. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, "You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Through this lens, Trump's actions mirrored those of biblical leaders, flawed yet chosen to protect the sacred spaces where faith can thrive. his efforts to safeguard. Religious liberty weren't just political decisions. They were bold affirmations of the right to live and worship freely. In John 8:32, Jesus says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." For many, Trump's advocacy for religious freedom echoed this truth, reminding the world that true liberty includes the right to live out one's faith without fear of persecution. His executive orders and support for public prayer were more than political acts. They were declarations in defense of a God-given right to express faith openly. As the Bible promises, "If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land." 2 Chronicles 7:14. For those who view Trump's actions as part of a divine plan, each of his decisions to protect religious freedoms was a step toward healing and restoring the nation. While some were unsettled by his approach, others saw it as proof that something greater was guiding his path, a reminder that faith and religious liberty should be safeguarded no matter the cost. Conclusion: the 7 signs. These are the 7 signs that suggest Donald Trump might be fulfilling a divine purpose. But what do you think? Do you find the biblical connections compelling enough to support this belief, or do you feel the scriptures are unrelated to the events at hand? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you're curious to dive deeper, don't miss the next video where we explore why some religious leaders are comparing Kamala Harris to Queen Esther, a significant biblical figure. What might this comparison reveal about her role in today's political landscape?